This video here is mostly for my followers. Most of you guys that's been here for a long time. My friends, my followers that's been here for a long time. All you people that's been here for a while. You know who you are. I don't have to go through a list of names. There's a reason for everything, okay? Okay? We go through certain emotions, right? Through certain things, teaching, learning, waking up, using our primordial motor skills. You're all here for a reason, you know that. And that's what's important. But right now I want to give you some totally different information. Okay? I've been hardcore, you know that. Okay? I've been a hardcore father and a father's figure, trying to do everything I can to help you. Right? Everything to get out of your mind and out of the trap, the mind trap. So you can cope in life. Not causing you to stumble, get back on your feet, to be a real man and a real woman to cope in life. And there's a reason for that. I was designed for this. I was designed for this moment. So I want to go through some specific details. Believe me, this is the toughest test in human history. This is a tough test. This is really seriously hardcore. Okay? It's tough. Okay? Suffering. Isolated. Loneliness. You might relate to this a bit more. I know most of you out there is very isolated, alone, and suffering. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why I'm teaching you to cope the best way I can. Because I know what you're going to suffer from. This is only the beginning of the end. You know that. Right? It's going to get a lot harder. It's going to get a hell of a lot harder. Things are going to escalate dramatically. Right? A lot of people's living in a comfort zone in some massive delusional state. Right? And they think the world's going to be great and they're going to create a new earth, etc., etc., etc. But they don't understand what's going down. They don't understand what's coming. They don't believe in it because they can't handle it. That's how you know the truth. 99% of the whole human population cannot handle what's coming. They cannot deal with it. Right? They're not prepared for it and they never will be. So when the time comes, how do you think they're going to cope when they have their back up against the wall and can't function? No food, no nothing. How do you think they're going to cope when everything collapses in the whole world? When the whole system collapses and the whole world collapses, how do you think people's going to really cope? When they have their back up against the wall with nothing else to lose, how do you think people's going to respond? One can only imagine, right? One can only imagine with their wildest imagination. But most people can't deal with it. So they live in a comfort zone and manifest their own truth and live in a bubble with a voice in the mind that tells them to do that. Because they only listen to the voice in their mind, trapped inside their mind. So they're not prepared for nothing. It's going to get tough. It's going to get hardcore. Really hardcore. You know, when I was a child, my father left me at 1. I know many of you have heard this story, but I want you to listen carefully. Take this in deep into your heart and soul for a reason. You need to. My mother's next boyfriend drowned me in a bathtub at 16 months old. Oh, sorry. He put me in hospital with a 16-ounce microsurgery to my jaw and my gums at 16 months old. Then he drowned me in a bathtub 4 months later at 20 months old. Before I was 2 years old. I was declared dead, revived in hospital. Then my stepfather rejected me, said I was worthless, never mount up to anything. Then we moved to Australia in 1970. I had red hair and freckles, the first name Kim, and couldn't speak English. Got picked on every day at school and got my head punched in every single day. By 10, 15 kids. I left school at 12 years old. I took drugs to numb myself. I lived in the streets. I watched half my mate on dying heroin. 3 died in my arms. I flatlined at 18 years old and OD'd. Walked around like a zombie for a week. Okay, I got off drugs at 21 years old. I suffered. Okay, I suffered stress, anxiety, bipolar, had panic attacks. Used to go to medical hospital, right, 2, 3, 4 nights a week. We lived 700 metres away from a 24-hour medical hospital, a medical surgery, 24-hour a day one. And I was up there 2, 3, 4 nights a week with a serious panic attack. Used to get a massive shot of vitamin C, 300,000 milligram, to settle me down. I went through that for 4 years. And I took a very different path, but I went through suffering. And my father rejected me, said I was worthless, I never meant up to anything. The school rejected me. The kids rejected me. I had my head punched in every day until I was 18 years old, until a flatline. After that, no one could hurt me anymore. Nothing feared me more than death after going through that adverse effect. After that, no one could ever hurt me again. Once I stopped fearing, it wasn't any fun to pick on me. Once I stopped fearing, it wasn't any fun to pick on me. People always pick on weak links, and that's what majority of people do. They always belittle one another, run each other down. That's why so many people do it on social media platform behind the screen, because they're spineless weak cowards. And I discovered nearly the whole world is spineless weak cowards. That's why they're always gang up on you. That's why they always treat you like shit. But really the truth is 98% of people are spineless, weak, jealous, spiteful cowards. And they got no guts. That's what I learned in life the hard way. I learned I was fearing nothing. I was fearing from people, right, that always stomps all over your head, right, always wants to control the situation, and that's most of the Western civilization that's like this, especially social media platform. They're the most dysfunctional text trolls and drama creams in the world that always belittles you and puts you down, but they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. They've got no real courage. They're not real men and women. They're just psychological creatures with a personality. Because they're designed that way to listen to the voice in the mind that tells them to do that. That's why most people in the world, in the Western civilization declared on documents, has the lowest moral standards in the world. And then people like me in the streets, we have the highest moral standards in the world because we don't use the same tools. We were not educated, we were rejected, and we're the biggest masterminds in the world recording the documents. We're the most moral, compassionate feelings, and we think instinctively the most. You might relate to that, and I dare say that you do. I dare say that that's why you're here, because you're more moral and you're more in God's image than anyone else, because the rest of the world's in Satan's image. And that's just a known fact. I made a lot of videos about this. Look at my last video I just posted. Right? This is the shocking truth. And the video I posted yesterday. Okay? The Prophet Harari, the 100,000 fake prophets all over the world, and the real prophet. Okay? I suggest very powerful you watch that video. But let me tell you something. Okay? I've gone through a lot in my life. I became #1 drug lord in the underground world, in charge of the 7 most powerful networks. One can only imagine what I've seen in my life and what I've lived with. I've lived with a lot of death and a lot of evil in my life. I went to prison for 10 years. What do you think it's like living in prison for 10 years? And you're living with the most evil scumbags in the world. And you've got to learn to love thy enemy as much as you love thy neighbor, because you're living with them. Stop and think about that. You ever lived with the most evil scumbags in the world for 10 years of your life? And gone into the biggest amount of research ever conducted in global history and ground level for 10 years? Man, you learn more about life through this than any person in the world ever will. And how much suffering do you think you go through in prison for 10 years? And how much suffering do you think you live in when everyone suffers in prison? Lose their family, lovers and friends? And dwell on every moment that they created that put them in there? The dominant effect it has upon family, lovers and friends, themselves and their victims? Believe me, you see more moral instincts and empathy and remorse in prison than you ever see outside. Okay? You see people hurting. You see family, lovers and friends disappear. You see and learn who your real friends and family is through this kind of adverse effect. You learn more about a person in prison in 5 weeks than you know about their best friends outside in 5 years. You live in a concrete jungle where everyone's equal because you're forced into it. You learn to love thy enemy as much as your neighbour because you live with them. And in there it only works in a family environment where the elders guide the young and take them under their wing and show them the ropes. And you know, you can only live in there as a mother and a father and a brother and a sister, because it's the only thing that works. There's no system, no governments, no authorities, no educational system, no greed, power, temptation, money and things to control every aspect of your life, no modern technology with gadgets. So therefore you live equally, the same clothes, the same meals every day, right? You have nothing to do but talk and dwell on your misery, and every moment you create that you treasure the most, and you learn more about people in 5 weeks than you learn about people outside in 5 years. And believe me, it's an extraordinary education. You find out the truth in prison after 7 years and go back in your primordial state, okay, and have more confidence and inspiration than you've ever had in your life, because you go back to your natural motor skills after 7 years and you find the truth in prison you cannot find outside. And what do you discover? You discover you become mentally institutionalized in school and suffer the human condition throughout your life with voice in your mind. Then you come to prison, and then for 7 years you go back in the natural environment the same as 0 to 7. So you start to explore that wonderful gift after 7 years and discover who you really are, right, and what your real tools are. And you don't think mentally all the time. So you don't suffer from the voice in the mind that you're programmed into and engineered into for education. So no more voices in your mind. So you find freedom in prison you can't find outside. Because when you go to education, you get put in prison with voices in your mind. And then you have voices telling you what to do all the time without even realizing it. So when you go to prison, you go back in your natural environment, and it takes 7 years to be fully readapted back into your natural environment. Then you discover the truth. And you find real freedom when you go back in the natural environment the same as 0 to 7. Then you go back to your childhood and explore the wonderful God-given gift you come in this world with. Then you find real freedom. Freedom you can't find outside. So when you come outside, you choose not to readapt to back outside, because everybody else is mental in that present environment where they're controlled by the voice of mind, right, in a mental institutionalization and suffer the human condition all the time. Now you have freedom and you come back outside and realize everyone's rattling on mental, psychological, egotistical behavior, conquer, debate and divide with egotism, and you were the same. You knew you were suffering exactly the same way when you come to prison. Now you realize when you come out of prison, you're free from all that, and you realize the world's not free, that they're all mental and psychological with egotism and self-centered behavior, conquer, debate and divide and competitive. And you realize you don't want to go back to that, because it made you suffer the most. So you don't go back to that. And then you can't fit in with the rest of society. You cannot fit in. And in order to fit in, you've got to go back into that environment and think too much again, with voices in your mind, because that's the way they respond, because they live in so much negativity. So I started to go back into it as if I'm going back into prison. Then I died in 2012 and declared dead for 23 minutes and woke up from amnesia, not to go back. And God put me through that path for a reason, to make sure I would not get reprogrammed and engineered back into the system, back into prison environment with voice in my mind again. Because the world's trapped by the mind, with voice in the mind, possessed by the devil, as I've declared on documents and declared on evidence, right, in the biggest cellular study research and scientific evidence, right, from the biggest biologists in the whole world. I found the cure of the human condition in prison and brought the truth, right, from the cave of prison. I brought the truth to the masses. And people don't believe in it. Well, trust me, I know what suffering is from the voice in the mind that controls us all the time. And believe me, it's a lonely road. It's a tough, tough test. And believe me, God puts you through misery non-stop to go through the test and make sure you hang on to faith. If there's one thing I know, it's having faith in your own biological genes and your natural genetic medicines that you need. You need to have faith in yourself and learn how to love yourself correctly with the quantum mechanic of a relationship. And believe me, you're always put through the toughest test of your life. Think about this. I've been declared dead 3 times. I had a major heart attack with 3 stents fitted. I had a stroke, paralyzed from my neck down, walked out of hospital, and 45 minutes later, when I was told I could never walk again. I've gone through a lot of things. Stabbed 27 times. I've been in 7 different comas. I've bled to death nearly twice. I've gone through that many near-death experiences. Not funny. And I don't wish that upon my own worst enemy. But God will test you non-stop. Okay? He will make you suffer non-stop. And to this very day, He keeps me in line. Right? You know, I've got lung cancer, stage 4, and throat cancer. And constantly I go through certain pains, but I never give up. Not once do I ever give up, no matter what. Because I've repaired things before, and it doesn't mean I'm going to make it. But I have faith that I can repair things. I have faith that God gives me the God-given power. When your principalities are in the right place, He gives you the power to heal. Christ healed a lot of people, man. I've healed myself before with evidence, rock solid evidence, and my DNA is different. So I have faith. I'm not saying I can beat it. I'm not putting tickets on myself, but God will put me the toughest test. And you know, some days I'm on fire. Other days I feel sick. And every time I feel sick, it's because of my mind. Whenever I'm in negative fears and think bad, I suffer the consequences. But when I get outside the mind, I feel fantastic. I feel so alive, it's not funny. So some days I collapse and other days I repair. And you know, we become better and better at it. You know, we're damaged goods, 5,000 years of damaged goods. I'm damaged goods, and I've said that in many videos. Many people think I'm putting tickets to myself, right, with some sort of egotistic behavior. Believe me, I know my damage. And I face my damage every day. I know I got a lot of damaged goods. And I don't live in any brain-lock denial about that. I was designed for a lot of evil. I went to prison for 10 years. I was a #1 figure in the underground world, in charge of the 7 most powerful networks. Of course I'm damaged fucking goods, for God's sake. You don't think I recognize that? Of course I do. I've suffered the consequences too. And I still do this very day. But you know what? It's a lonely fucking road. And I know something. God put you through the toughest test where the most lonely people in the world that suffers the most will rise to the occasion the most and who protect them the most. And that's a known fact. It's a known fact. Now, he's going to put you through a lot of suffering. And he told you that in the Bible. It's going to be hardcore, right? So when you look at the delusional people on social media platform with light workers and conscious workers, right? Okay, in some massive delusional state, you know, they're in a massive delusional state and they're not suffering the consequences because they really can't deal with the truth. It's that easy to see it's not funny. It's people like us that really knows what the circumstances are and really knows how human behave in the world to put tickets in themselves like Hollywood characters. Living in a massive delusional state and do nothing for society in real life. Can't even connect with their own family members and friends. We know that. It's difficult right now. It's a tough time and it's going to get a lot worse. You got to have faith, man. That's my whole message here. You have to have absolute faith in God, Jesus Christ, and why he's your only Savior. Trust me. Do not ever, ever let go of that moment. He is the only thing that can bring you through this. Trust me, I know. I don't give a flying fuck what anyone else says. If you don't have God in your life and that relationship, you're going to be screwed, man. You're going to live in a massive delusional state and you're going to get the shock of your life when the time comes. Trust me, when your principality's in the right place, no weapon formed against you can prosper. God gives you the power with more love than you can imagine. And when you are in your toughest moments and facing the most evil moment in your life, he's there, man. He's been there for me every time. He puts me through the toughest test. But trust me, he's always there and brings me through it. He loves you in the most ridiculous way. But you know what? He makes a man out of you to cope with this situation. To cope with what you've got to cope with. He does it for a reason. There's always a greater reason. It's the greater good for yourself, man. But you need to be masculine. You need to be a real man and a real woman and go back in your primordial state and do not let fear, stress, anxiety, confusion, frustration, and delusion control you. Don't let your mind control you. Get out of the mind trap. That's the whole idea here. Don't let your mind do your own head in and do the head mindset that makes you suffer all the time. Get the right out of your mindset. Get out of your mind. Your mind's in the bushes, the mind's fear up your ass, and it thinks too much, and you suffer the consequences non-stop. And believe me, there's a reason for that. It's for the greater good. The devil possesses our mind. We have demons in our mind, and that's a fact. People normalize it and think they're talking to themselves, so they're possessed by those demons because they give them consent with love and compassion, with chocolates and roses, and they mentally resonate with everything with conscious thoughts, and that's not what it's about. It's about using your natural organic motor skills with the quantum mechanic of a relationship. Genuine loyalty, honor, respect, moral participation, encouragement. The tools of righteousness and making every correct, right decision. Believe me. Sometimes you've got to be hardcore to get through people's thick skull. There's method to madness, and sometimes you've got to be cruel to be kind. But you do it for the right reason. That's what counts. It's not about what you say, it's about why you do it. It's not what comes out of your mouth, it's your action that speaks out in words that counts. That's where everyone's inverted today. They think it's about beautiful language with chocolates and roses and sophisticated knowledge and being kind with words. But take a look at their real action. Then you really know who they are. Because most people manipulate, lives in a comfort zone with sophisticated language and speaks shit all day to put tickets in themselves in a comfort zone, all right, and are self-proclaimed prophets, choose themselves with their self-centered behavior and live in some massive delusional state, but their action proves who they are. And God knows that. He's not a fucking fool, I can tell you that. That's one thing I learned the hard way. He's no fucking fool. If he chose me with the walk of life that I had and put me through this adverse effect to be he's sitting here today, what does that tell you? He doesn't judge the way people do. That's what it tells you. They're so mental in the world, they all think they know better and they think they're great gods and better than God. When God creates the most powerful images in modern history and people don't believe in it, you can see how screwed up they are in their head. How self-centered they are and how jealous and spiteful they are. And that's the whole Western civilization that behaves like that every day. Can't handle the truth, can't face it, can't live with it, and whatsoever. Only live in their own truth. My truth matters. Fucking idiots all over the world, man. You think God created us to be like that? No, Satan did. To be self-centered, full of self-envy, and so egotistical to live in your own truth in some sort of comfort zone, and then debunk and discredit everybody else in the mind trap that you're in, that you're suffering from. The way that you think and judge, the way you accuse people, the way you belittle people, the way you be with competitive behavior to live in some sort of comfort zone in a massive delusional state with scientific theories and aren't facts, in a massive delusion with a high IQ that only makes you good at what you do, in a 5-sense world, in your 5 senses, God gives you the power to think with your 6th sense, to think outside the mind, not trapped in the mind. So you control your vessel and you control your mind. And it might be tough, but that's just how it is. Reality. The truth will set you free and the liberation is sensational. Magnificent. Don't be controlled by the mind, by the way you think. That's all possessed by the devil. And it deceives you non-stop with chocolates and roses. It sounds heavenly. It's all BS, man. It's all by design. The sooner you realize Satan controls this planet with an outside influence of reality through the principality and power in the air, and the way you think, the way you convey feelings to thoughts and explain your own biological language, the sooner you wake up to this. So you're not trapped in the mind. So you know who you are, why you're here, and what the real meaning of life is. Because it's about love. And love comes with 8 building blocks that are the tools of righteousness. Without them, you've got nothing. You're not in balance with yourself. You haven't got a grip of yourself. Now, I know it's tough. It's tough for me as well, guys. There isn't a day it's not tough. People criticize me every day and throw stones at me. I put up with that much shit, it's not funny. But I was built for it. I was designed for this. 98% of Westerners throw stones at me every day. So I'm designed for that. And I take it like water for duck's back. They have no idea because they do not know what they do and they do not know any better. They're trapped in their mind with self-centered behavior and egotism. Right? Live in a massive delusional state and so afraid and so sensitive and so highly emotional they can't get a grip of themselves. They don't know what the truth is and they can't handle it because they're too afraid. They're so afraid and controlled by fear, stress and anxiety because that's what Satan does. He controls your biological system, right, by controlling your mind and keep you sensitive and highly emotional. And believe me, I know. How many people out there has got bad addiction and on drugs to cope in life? Because you know you've got demons in your mind, that's why. You can go to a concert, right, and put your hand up and say, how many guys out there have got demons in mind and on bad drug habits? And nearly every person put their hand up. You know why? 96% of Westerners take drugs to numb themselves and then lie about it because they can't cope. It's a known fact. 96% take drugs, illicit or not, because they can't cope and most of them lie about it. It's a known fact. It's a known fact. More than 50% of people that take drugs lies about it. We know that by fact. There's been a study done on this and a survey brought out about this, that people tell their family lovers and friends they don't take drugs, but they take medication and it's in their biology on DNA test and they lie. They even lie to their doctors and say they don't take drugs and it's in their system. It's on a document. On DNA evidence all over the world. And they know through family lovers and friends, they lie to their own family lovers and friends and have drugs in their system and lie to everyone around them. You know what that means? It means more than 50% of people lying. They've done so many mental health researches on every level with cellular study research. We can see every negative person in the world in their cellular study research. Every liar in the world that lives in a massive delusional state. We can now get it right down to the fine art through cellular study research, and those that don't have a 6th sense, and those that use it the most, we can now tell that 96% of the whole Western civilization lives in a delusional state in negative fields with their body cells, which means they live in a delusion, live in a lie, live in their own comfort zone, or can't handle the truth. We can go through a lot of adverse effects from this, but cellular study research alone shows that they all live in negative fields, and they think too much, regardless of what comes out of their mouth. So it doesn't matter what they say. Cellular study research and DNA evidence proves without any doubt only 6% of the population, 4% of the population lives in positive fields. Only 4% of the population lives in positive fields. With placebo effect medication, out of every 1,000 people, placebo effect medication means there's no medication in it. 4% can repair their genes, that has faith in their biological genes, to use their natural organic matter skills to think instinctively. Now I can go through meth effects, mRNA technology, drug delivery system with every single same adverse effect. We know gene defects and mental disorders are through the roof, and everyone's affected by this. Stress going through the roof, drug pandemics all over because people can't cope, and most lie about it. Live in a massive delusional state. And that's hardcore. It's also the greatest psychological warfare in human history against our spirit and stripping our sixth sense, which is our spiritual connection. And people don't want to go back into the primordial state to restore it neither. So they're trapped in their mind that much as they normalize this and keep twisting the fabric of truth to suit themselves and live in their own bubble where they've totally normalized what was moral yesterday non-stop. They're not moral anymore because they can't even use their moral instincts. They can only use them 1 to 5%. They're supposed to use them 95 to 99%, but they can only use them 1 to 5. They think mentally now 95 to 99% with a high IQ that's artificial intelligence trapped inside their mind with a booster mind, ultimately designed from an extinction. And that's why we suffer. That's why we take drugs. And we all go through this. Every one of us suffering from this. We're not alone. That's what you've got to understand. We are not alone. There's no one that's, I'm the truth and I'm better than anyone else. Everyone's suffering from this. Every human being on earth suffers from this because we have the devil in our mind. We have evil inside us. The Bible tells us that we're all full of evil, and we all are. And the best way to see this is not to think, oh no, there's no evil in me, I'm better than everyone else. We have evil in our mind with every decision we make. We consume the wrong food, we make the wrong decisions, we don't grow our own food, we're disconnected from life, nature, and the things we're in harmony with, we're disconnected from love, loyalty, honor, respect, moral, mercy, persuasion, courage. We're disconnected from all these things, man, and we're all affected by this. All of us are. And we have to understand, we all suffer from this. I do. Right? I do. So if I do, don't think for 1 minute you don't, because I know you do. We're conquered the pain involved with their family, with everybody in the world. Everyone's living their own truth in some sort of manifestation in their own bubble. And we're all suffering. Every one of us suffering the human condition to one degree or another. All of us are, together. Those suffering the most are the most awake. And God knew only a handful of people would be fully awake. He said only the witness would teach the resurrection, and only the elect will not be deceived. So we will all be deceived. Every single one of us has been deceived and live in a massive delusional state with a mind trap that we're in. And breaking free from that is tough. It's not easy. To learn to master the mind takes 7 years to get out of the mind trap. But you've got to dedicate yourself. You've got to have the thirst to go back into your primordial state so you don't suffer the consequences. Right now, you need to have a massive leap of faith and rely on that faith because, believe me, it works. Man, if I died for 23 minutes and then woke up, I was paralyzed with my neck down, told I never walk again, got up and walked out in 45 minutes. Think about what that takes. You know, it was confirmed 3.5 years later that I had a stroke and I was paralyzed from my neck down, and only a handful of people in the whole world can get up and walk out in 45 minutes. But I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's done this. Every single miracle I've had in my life has been recorded before. I'm not alone. Right? Every adverse effect I had, every miracle I had, my DNA being different, right? All these things that happened in my life, I'm not alone. There's a number to this. Such as growing 3 new stents, growing 3 new arteries around my stents. 1 of every 6,000 does that. So I'm by far not alone. What happened when I had a stroke and got up and walked out, 1 out of every 180,000 does that. But that's still 1 out of every 180,000, which means out of every 180,000, somebody else can do that. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. There's a lot more people that can do that than what we realize, but no one talks about it. Miracles in hospital. Now, the way my wife came back to life 3 times had never been seen before on those few reports. That was one of the biggest mind-blowing miracles they'd ever seen in history. They couldn't explain. There was nothing to compare it with. That one's mind-blowing. But regardless, God works in mysterious ways through miracles, right? Through these things, through the atmosphere, right? He gives you the power. He gives us the power, right? And when you can see what he does with these kind of miracles, right, you can see how God works. And no one believes in it. Why? Because they're trapped in their mind, man. It's a mind trap. It's a big mind trap, possessed by the devil, right? Convinced in the mind otherwise. That's what it is. So there's a hell of a lot to learn here and a hell of a lot to gain. Believe me, I know. But the mind will always play tricks and games in you, and you always become your own worst enemy. Never forget that. While you're here on this earth, in flesh, the mind will always play tricks and games in you, and you always become your own worst enemy, and it's always a tough battle. To fight yourself, to fight your psychological mind. But believe me, it gets easier every day. God gives you that gift. It's a battle. It's always a battle, man, between good and evil, right and wrong. It's always a battle in your mind as well. You're always fighting yourself. And your mind always tries to control you. But you have the power to think outside the mind and control your vessel and control your mind so it can't get you. But it's never going to stop trying. And then when you think with other people around you and other people try to belittle you, it will affect you. It was always affected by other people. So believe me, isolating yourself is not a bad idea. Make sure you choose your friends wisely and not people that put you down and belittle you. Get away from those idiots. Get away from most of the people in the world. Believe me, I can sit here on a social media platform every day. The only people I want to meet is the people that come to me through the social media platform. They're the only ones I meet. I can't deal with anyone else myself. Right? Me and Maren sit alone 24 hours a day and don't deal with anybody because of that fact. Everyone's trapped in their mind so much, and you can't have an intellectual conversation with anyone. You can't talk to anyone about these deep emotional feelings because they can't deal with it. They think you're crazy when in fact they are when they can't deal with it. And it isn't easy. Right? We can't talk about the things we talk about because people can't deal with them. They live in their own narrative, in a comfort zone. They can't deal with nothing but themselves and their own truth and the mind that tells them to do that. And it isn't easy, guys. It's tough. And trust me, I know something, and that's why I'm telling you right now. I know many of you out here following me is suffering the consequences dramatically. And that's why I put you through this path, to grow inspiration, not to cause you to stumble, but to get you back on your feet with your masculinity, right? Back in your primal state, so you know how to deal with it, because the rest of the world does not know what they do, and they do not know any better. And you need to be in that mindset. That's why I'm telling you, you need to go through the light of the inner tunnel and realize the light's a lot shiny on the other side and the grass is a lot greener. And when you look back in the tunnel, you control your vessel from there, from outside in instead of the inside out. And once you do that, you have the greater understanding to understand resurrection. You must understand resurrection, and believe me, right? It isn't easy. But once you go through amnesia and break free from the reincarnation trap, from the mind trap, you look back and realize, my God, I did not know any better. I did not know what I was doing. And trust me, it's a liberation. The truth will set you free so beyond your understanding that every chain wrapped around you unfolds. Every rabbit hole. You're stuck in a tunnel. You're stuck in the tree of knowledge of all things good and evil with voice in your mind. When you break free from that, the liberation is sensational. Then you look back in the tunnel and you understand in the resurrection, because now you're in the knowing, not in the psychological belief system with your own perception and your own narrative. You're now free from all that and all the bullshit in mind and being trapped and limited and suppressed and oppressed. You're free from all of it. You're free from stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia. You're free from the whole 9 yards. Then you're thinking from the outside in and you realize, my God, I did not know any better, and I did not know what I was doing until this moment, until I broke free from the reincarnation trap, until I broke free from amnesia, discovered who I am, why I'm here, what the meaning of life is. And believe me, the liberation is sensational. Then you look back in the tunnel and realize, my God, the first thing that comes to you, listen guys, I died in 2012. I went through a transformation for 3.5 years. I can't explain. I never believed in God. I didn't disbelieve. I never read the Bible. I never went to church. But when I went through this, there was only one thing in the whole world, on any document, anything in the whole world that related to this. That's what brought me through this. And this is where I need you to listen. A person who's gone into another dimension like this in a time where time stands still and life is searched where everything is perfect, no pain, stress and fear, in a time where time stands still and everything preserves, everything's perfect. When you're there and you stick your head through the light of the inner tunnel and you head out of the cave and you realize the dimension over there where the grass is a lot greener and the sun's a lot shiny and it's so beautiful, that's the only moment that you realize, my God, the only thing in the whole world, anywhere, on any records that can relate to this is exactly what Christ said. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Understanding resurrection is understanding this very point. So when the Bible says you must go through the rebirth and reborn and go back in your primordial state into the image you're created in, you must resurrect and understand resurrection. This is the only thing in the world, right, where you can understand resurrection by going through that inflection point, crossing over from the 6 to the 9. Yin and yang, you're in the 6 dark tunnel, tree of knowledge of all things good and evil, stuck in all the rabbit holes with multiple chains around you that depend on so much. When you're free from the voices of mind, you break free. The 9 is thinking outside the mind. Then you look back in and realize, my God, I crossed over. Hebrew means crossing over. Do you know that? That's what it means, right? Going through the rebirth is crossing over from the 6 to the 9, thinking outside the mind. Then you get it. Then you're in the knowing. And then you realize the most crucial thing on earth. There's only one explanation for this. And no matter who you are, where you come from and what you believe in and what mindset you're in or what new age you believe in, this is the only explanation in the whole world. When Christ turns around and says, Father, forgive them for they do not know what they do, that's what you feel in this moment. You realize you didn't know what you were doing up till this moment. You realize nobody else does because they're trapped in their mind until they go through this adverse effect, until they go through this inflection point and break free from the voice of the mind. Then you're in the knowing. Then you know what resurrection is. Then you understand something. And that made me turn to the Bible, and that made me realize, my God, Jesus Christ was right. This is why he knew. This is why he's our Savior. He's the only one in our human history that knows exactly what resurrection means and why we must know resurrection. To resurrect is to be free from the voice of the mind that traps us, to be free from all things and go into another dimension that's perfect. The kingdom. The kingdom is waiting for us, and you've been there, you know that, and you understand it's the quantum mechanic of a relationship with the 8 tools of righteousness coded in our DNA. It's the most mind-blowing thing in the world, and it's so beautiful you got no idea. And freedom is a liberation beyond the mind, way beyond the mind and way outside this dimension and way outside this world. And that's why you don't know until you get to this point. And that's real freedom, you know. And I just want you to have some of that, because believe me, I had no fucking idea what I was talking about until then. And I was a mastermind and done many extraordinary things in my life and gone through a lot of things in my life with punishing and suffering. But would I do this again? Let me tell you something. I don't wish my life and everything I've gone through on my own worst enemy. But if I had to come back here and learn everything all over again, I would go through this my life again to learn what I learned today. It's worth it that much. Everything I've gone through in my life, every bit of suffering, everything I've been punished for, it is worth it just to know this. Because you know what? You realize God and the love of God that you end up having, the Father, is way beyond anything you've ever had in this world. Right? You learn to love the Father and love him in ways you never had before in your life. You love Christ and you love the Father, the same person in the Trinity. You love the Holy Spirit above anything you've ever come to love in your life for that reason. And I would do this again if I had to learn what I've got to learn, to be here today. But God, I pray I never have to again, right? But that's the way it is, man. I reckon every bit of suffering we go through and every single thing we suffer is for the greater good, and God has your back. He loves you in ways you don't understand. It's the mind that deceives you, and when you go sideways, it's the devil in your mind. Believe me, I know. God gives you the great gift so that no weapon formed against you can prosper. When your principality's in the right place, you have the God-given power. Believe me, I know. Believe me, I know. And I just want you to have some of that. Create the relationship with God. It's not about religions. It's not about the Bible. Trust me. There's been pastors and priests rejected right now that's died, gone to the third heaven and sent back from people all over the world, and they're all saying the same things. Pastors and priests that's been educating for 20, 30 years are being rejected by God. And what does God say to all of them? You're all about yourself. This is the information coming out from a lot of people dying all over the world and coming back. Pastors and priests and Christians all over the world and New Age religions, right? All getting the same message, sent back with the same message. They didn't have a relationship with God. They were all about self. That's the information coming out of all over the world. People sent back because they're all about themselves and self-centered behavior, and their egotism, trying to put tickets in themselves, and sent back for that reason, and God didn't know them. They didn't have that kind of relationship. So believe me, I know for a fact it's not about religions. The Bible, it's a human story. It's a guide. It's a manual. It's about having a genuine relationship, a spiritual one. And you know what spirit is? Loyalty, honor, respect, moral, aspiration, encouragement. It's something you feel from every moment you create that you treasure the most. You feel it instinctively. You feel it morally, instinctively. You feel it through the atmosphere. It's a feeling. It's spiritual. That's why your instincts and your moral instincts to think instinctively is a spiritual way of thinking. Everything mentally doesn't mean jack shit. IQ don't mean crap. IQ and education and what you know and she knows and he said and she said doesn't mean jack shit. It's a relationship. It's a relationship. It's the 8 tools of righteousness that is the natural moral state in our natural organic motor skills. Trust me, I know, and it's a knowing that counts. So the suffering you're going through and taking drugs to numb yourself, there's nothing wrong with that because you know you're being possessed by the devil. And taking drugs, okay, be careful what you do. I don't recommend drugs because I show you how to recreate the sacred accretion with We're Not Breathing program and find the cure of the human condition with the book Freedom written by Jeremy Griffiths. Put these two together and believe me, you'll know what the truth is. And you'll be free from everything by changing your perception and recreating the molecules, right? The 2 molecules of mentality, right? The sacred accretion and reset your biological clock in your central nervous system. And trust me, it's the greatest tool ever given on earth. That's why Winnup's chosen and he won a Nobel Prize. Believe me, you need to do the We're Not Breathing program and read the book Freedom by Jeremy Griffiths. And trust me, you'll find more freedom than you can ever begin to imagine. Beyond the mind. Think outside the mind, beyond the mind. God gives you that gift and he makes you mastermind so you don't suffer the consequences with a voice in your mind that controls you all the time. Now, I know it's lonely out there, guys. And trust me, it's going to be lonely, right? You guys are the most dedicated. You're going to have to go through something. You're going to have to realize 99% of the whole population is going to turn on you, right? Because most people believe in evil is good and good is evil. Everyone's inside out, upside down. Everyone's inverted in the world, right? But you got to hold on to your faith, brother. You got to have absolute faith and do not allow, right, anyone to manipulate the truth. Don't normalise it was a moral yesterday because we've done that enough. It's going back into a moral state. Repent means go back. Go back in your moral state to use your natural organic motor skills to think outside the mind. We could all think spiritually 300 years ago. Now everyone thinks mentally with a high IQ, right, with an artificial intelligence. So they're fake human beings with a personality. They're fake human beings, fake love, fake synthetic crap all over the world. Because that's what they love so much. They love materialistic things, fake synthetic crap, science, evolutional theories. They love this world. They love everything fake because then they don't have to be human. They don't have to use the quantum mechanical relationship. They don't have to use the real loyalty, honor, respect, moral, aspiration, encouragement. They can only manipulate people on social media platform and live in a massive comfort zone and lie all the time. Action speaks louder than words, guys. Never forget that. Action speaks louder than words. Listen, God loves each and every one of you as if you are the only one. Believe me, I know. Have faith. Don't listen to any moron around you. Have faith, because you need it, guys. Because what we're going to face shortly, it's going to be very dramatic. And believe me, it's those suffering the absolute most that's going to go through the most loneliness and the most isolated that are God's children. The warriors that's going to suffer the most. The ones that stand by God in that faith are the ones that are going to suffer the most. I can guarantee you that. But that's why I'm preparing you for this. Trust me, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Not when your principality's in the right place. Then you have the God-given power and you will not have a death experience. Trust me, everything will happen in a blink of an eye. You will not have a death experience. You go straight into another dimension without any pain, stress, and fear in a time where time since life preserves. And you'll be living on the tree of life for 1,000 years. And everyone else will suffer for 1,000 years and wish they were dead. Trust me, I know. I've seen the future. They saw it in the looking glass. And they will suffer because they didn't listen. We suffer now, but we get the freedom they don't get. And they're going to suffer for 1,000 years because they decided to make us suffer. Right? They help the devil, and they work for the devil, and they work for the voice in the mind that tells them to do that. And as a result from that, while they're living in their bubble, they're going to suffer for 1,000 years, while we go into the Christ image to live at the tree of life for 1,000 years. Trust me, I know the truth, and the truth will set you free.